It's Don here from the board. Thanks for coming along and checking out this video. So in the previous two parts to this series, you would have seen me take apart a Carter No.7 plane, and then I tried to clean it up using WD-40, which was a bit of a fail. I've been to the shops now and I've purchased a mix of standard white vinegar and double strength white vinegar from the local shops, and I've also added an extra 2 liters of liquid into it. So we're talking 10 liters of liquid in this bucket, and it's diluted down to roughly 5% concentration. Okay. What I also did was I was able to get the screw out of the front knob, so that was good. I was able to push it out, press it out. So I will need to clean these up on the inside so that any residual rust in there is not going to potentially start more later, but that's at a later point in time. So we're just going to put that away for the moment. Now this has been sitting in that solution for about 5 hours. I was originally going to check it at 6 hours, but the weather is starting to turn bad. I was planning on washing and cleaning up outside, but we'll see how we go. So right now it smells very strongly, and even with that lid on, it's not airtight, but you can see all of those bubbles that are all over the actual metal. Wow, that was a big bubble that just went there. So it's definitely doing its thing, which is fantastic to see, but at the same time, we don't want it to go overboard and eat more metal than is necessary for cleaning, okay? So there's a lot of rust that's flaked off there. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna get on some gloves, I'm gonna give it a scrub with the wire brush or the nylon brush and get off a lot of the loose stuff if possible. Then we'll have a look at the condition of it and think about if I'm gonna leave it overnight or not, because overnight is quite a long time. If I'm not, what I can do is I can dry it and then put it aside, maybe cover it with, you know, debatable if I want to actually cover it with wax paste, but a couple of days probably isn't going to be too much of an issue. But I just don't want to go overboard with the vinegar. So even if I dry it off completely and let it sit, hopefully it won't get too much surface rust on it until, say, next weekend when I've got more time again to continue with the cleaning process. I can pour this vinegar back into the bottles and just keep using it, because obviously it's still got quite a lot of concentration in it. So right now, let's get some gloves on and give it a scrub and see how they come up. Glove box. I've had this box of gloves for a very long time now. I actually got this when I started doing resin casting keycaps a long time ago. Now, of course, if you found this video from searching for woodworking, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but this, my channel and everything that's derived from originally was about mechanical keyboards. But I like to do weird things, different things, and I'm doing a woodworking arc because I want to learn and try out woodworking to make things for mechanical keyboards. So that's kind of how we got to where we are right now with this. So I don't want to sink my whole hand in there and get vinegar inside the glove, but let's see how that's. Oh wow, that's really good. So a big patch of rust on the surface there has just come off immensely. So there's a lot there, and that is amazing. So let's see how the lever is doing. This treatment has been excellent. Even after 5 hours, the difference is absolutely astounding. All right, let's see how much of that is going to come off. Wow, man, I'm gonna say this vinegar method is far superior than trying to clean it off with WD-40. Way superior, way superior. That's I think this is going to be my go-to method going forwards for cleaning all my other planes. Now, I'm not a professional restorer here, and I want to just make these functional because I don't believe any of the pieces that I have are particularly special or rare and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to be damaging or destroying anything in particular if I don't do it right or get it right. Okay, I know some of you might be like, you know, I might be potentially doing something wrong and destroying a piece of history, but these things were really, you know, made in the order of thousands, right? Thousands and thousands and thousands, and there's so many people out there who collect and restore and use vintage woodworking tools of this variety. So I don't think I'm really going to be, you know, committing a crime to the collectible scene, unlike, you know, crazy people who are doing things like buying super rare artworks and then turning them into an NFT and then setting them on fire or something like that. That is truly a crime and just straight up dumb, in my opinion. But you know what? I don't really honestly think that's terribly controversial either. Okay. Just trying to get into that. The actual pocket there of this frog. Now I do need to rinse these off so that it stops the acid, the vinegar, the acetic acid that vinegar is, from continuing to work. But I'm really happy with how well that's come up. Okay, so most of that's come up. I'm just going to set that back in for now. Move on to the next piece. Wow, that's just really cleaning up an absolute treat. This is fantastic. Wow. I mean, I might need to do a bit of cleaning up with, you know, some sandpaper later as well, but for now, this is... The only thing is, this is really high and really uncomfortable. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to put this on the floor. There we go. And then I can squat down to do this instead. I'll tell you what though, it stinks so bad. It smells absolutely terrible. But it's a relatively small price to pay. At least I'm in a well-ventilated area. I don't have a fan blowing, but the shed is very well ventilated, all things considering. Now I did get some steel wool as well. I've just got a pack of cheapy stainless steel scrubbing, so if I need to break that out to give a part a bit of an extra abrasion, I can. But I think this brass wire brush is doing an admirable job of it for now. Now I don't know how I'm going to get in there. I can get to the underside of this okay. But underneath there, that's been peened over, and I don't want to, I really don't want to destroy it accidentally or damage it. So yeah, I'm just going to have to do my best around that bit of spring steel. That includes trying to scrub around it and trying to scrub into it like that. The lever up. Now if I was using, say, electrochemical cleaning as well, I'd probably be able to get in there because the current, the electrical current, will work wonders on surfaces too, but it's also potentially quite aggressive. So that's an alternative method, but I don't really want to be playing in that space at this current point in time. I understand the principle of it. I probably could hook it up somehow, but that's just not something I really want to be attempting at this point. So it's just, now that is come up an absolute treat. Absolute treat. All right, let's just leave the main body for now. Wow, that's just melting off. Super duper. This chip breaker is transforming before my eyes. Now this chip breaker has a massive chunk out the front there, so that's bent. I've hit something hard with that. I'm going to have to do a bit of work, I think, on the diamond stones to smooth that out. Now this underside doesn't seem to have had as good a treatment, but that's not surprising because it's been resting on it, so it probably hasn't had as much surface contact with the actual acid to work it. So I might need to leave that a little bit longer. But the top side definitely had a massive change. All right, let's go to the iron itself. Wow, look at that. Look at that. Beautiful. Now, I don't know if there's any maker's marks on this that are going to be important. I did see that there was some stamp on the back here earlier, but we'll see if it's actually legible now that a lot of this surface is coming off. Once again though, this has been sitting on the bottom side, so it might not be... Oh, it's cleaned up pretty well. Now let's see, can I read the etching? It says Carter Tools. Yeah, you can actually read. It says Carter Tools, Australia. Fantastic. Fantastic. So for some reason then that cap iron didn't clean up so well, even though it's been sitting in the same sort of solution. That bent. Oh, the iron is slightly bent, but that's okay. That's okay. As long as where it's contacting against the frog is relatively... Yeah, that iron is bent. Oh, it's had a rough life. This plane has had a rough life. But it's exciting. It's exciting. Okay, so the screws I think should be pretty easy to clean. They weren't in a terrible condition to start with. Can hear the rumbling of the thunder. Yeah. All right, what I'm going to do is, where's that container? Okay, I'm going to drop that in there because then we can rinse that off because they're not going to need extensive amounts of work still. Hopefully, I can't tell because everything is so cold at the moment if I've got a hole in the glove, but whatever. And my thighs are complaining from being down on my squat haunch for so long, but they'll just have to deal with it. Okay, here's another screw. So the vinegar wasn't too expensive. It was $1.70 Australian for 2 litres of the normal 4%, and it was $2.50 for the 8%. Now, of course, I've added the extra water, so it has diluted it, but it's roughly coming to about, you know, $2.20 thereabouts, I think, with some really bad quick mental arithmetic per 2 liters for the cleaning vinegar. So I think it's quite a cost-effective solution to use. Okay, so one of these is the tote screw. Now what's really exciting is I've been trying to find a means to get some asphaltum in Australia, and I was put on to a gentleman thanks to a Facebook group who has some available for resale in Australia. So the gentleman's away for work at the moment, but when he gets back home, he will try and put some into a container, and we'll work out some details, and he'll sell it to me. He claims that cost, but honestly, you know, if he makes a profit from it, if it's reasonable, I think I'm okay with it. I'm not really after a huge amount to start with anyway, but what asphaltum is used for is for Japanning. Now, Japanning is that black sort of color that you see on a lot of these Stanley tools, and I talked about it in one of my previous episodes, I believe. So it'll be interesting to see if I can actually get some, make some solution for it, actually spray it and coat it, and then cure it. So, you know, if I apply Japanning to this Carter plane, it's definitely going to make it look really special, I think, compared to it just being a bit more plain, no pun intended, from me just doing this cleanup and then a wax paste, which will leave it sort of at a bare metal kind of arrangement. So that's exciting, and they finally got back to me with that. I did have kind of a backup plan, because from my research on a technical point of view, asphaltum is the same as bitumen, which is basically just a petroleum tar that naturally occurs. So I was going to just go and buy a 20-kilogram bag of raw bitumen that a local big box hardware store has for, you know, home driveway, pavement, well, not really pavement, but, you know, home repairs type of use case. And if that worked, then cool. Then I'd have 20 kilograms of potentially, you know, effectively asphaltum to play with, to try out my hand at Japanning and different Japanning recipes and things like that. All right. So this particular screw is really interesting, this one, because this actually is from the back of the frog, and it's actually a reverse thread. I was actually trying to get it off, and it wasn't moving, and I didn't want to force it, and then I was like, well, if I screw it the other way, because it's actually moving, and then it started turning, and I realized, well, the reason why it's a reverse thread is so it doesn't come out when you're actually making adjustments to the actual plane depth. So what I mean by that is it fits into the back here with that flat end in, and it's actually a reverse thread, so it goes in by turning it counterclockwise, and it cinches in that way, like that. So you have to actually turn it clockwise to get it out. So yeah, that's a cool feature, well thought out. Now this knob, I believe, is actually aluminium, because it didn't really need terribly much cleaning, but I thought I'd just chuck it in there anyway, just to get rid of any residue. Oh, that could have gone all bad. I do have glasses on, so at least, you know, if I had any acid splashed into my eyes, the glass, my spectacles, would have helped prevent some of that getting into an unpleasant situation. But look, it's helped clean up some of that gunk, dissolved it, whatever it is. Yeah, looking good. Looking good. All right. So here's the front knob handle screw that we managed to get out of the front knob. Look at that. Nice. This one might need a little bit more if it's not going to come up clean. Yeah, that's got quite heavy corrosion on it, all things considering. It was just sitting inside a wooden handle. So may have got wet and the wood retained the wetness and the moisture, and has kind of just given it a bit more of an in-depth attack on it over time. And the wood, having not been sealed, would have just, you know, in humidity, just sucked up more moisture and just helped it continue its rust journey. Rightio. Well, most of that's cleaned up okay. Let's have a look. I reckon with a little bit of elbow grease and the sandpaper, I probably don't need to keep this soaking in the vinegar. Yeah, I think this is probably going to be okay. All right. My legs. Getting old. Not as old as these tools. Yeah, that's good. That's coming off nicely. You know, the irony is I wanted to do more stuff in the workshop to get away from screen time. Back in the apartment, when I was doing a lot of stuff within the house, you know, I'd always be there in front of the screen anyway. Whereas now when I'm doing this in the shed, I'm away from a computer. I'm away from a screen because I don't have anything here for now anyway. But I'm making content which, you know, you guys are sharing my experiences here by watching it through a screen. So I get the benefit of being hands-on, getting a bit of physical exercise and activity and getting away from screen time, but I'm really kind of, you know, feeding your screen time. I appreciate it, of course, and I know and understand and appreciate that not everybody has means to space like this, or necessarily the finances to go and buy, you know, old tools, even though, you know, I'm super bargain hunting constantly, and can afford the time and luxury to have a hobby to do this. So, you know, if this is the way that you can feed your desire to be doing these kinds of things, then I'm very thankful that I can afford to do this and give you some of that experience and share some of the experiences of what is involved in doing all of this. Okay, so there should be 2 washers. So we got one washer here. Hey, come on. That's, you know, should be pretty easy to clean off anyway. They're just flat washers. There's nothing too heavy duty special about them. And then the second one is here. Yeah, barely really needs anything on that one. Just a light scrub. The sandpaper will clean that up as well. Whoa. And now this thing. All right, so we were tracking this side before, and the WD-40 was doing a terrible job of it, but look at that. Wow. You know, when they talk about 24 hours and 4%, the fact that I'm only really just bumping it up, you know, roughly 1% at this point in time, this is 5 hours of soaking, and it's not even hot right now. So as far as chemical reaction goes, this is not even at full pelt. We're at sub 20 degrees right now. It's autumn in Sydney here at the moment. But this is just a magical transformation. Look at this. Wow. that's wicked. Absolutely wicked. I am so pleased with these results, and well worth the $10 I've spent on the vinegar. Now I do need to take these out to wash them and to neutralize it. Now the person that I was watching the video from, also an Australian, was actually in a little shed with a very low roof, mind you. They made a bicarb soda mix to ensure that all the acid was neutralized, and I get it, I totally understand that, but I don't know if it's absolutely necessary for it if you give it a really good rinse and a wipe, rub down, sand down type of situation. Oh, compare that to that. Wild. And then of course the other side should come up just as good. Yeah. Super stoked. Now there's a lot of dissolved solids at the moment in this vinegar. What I'm hoping is that when I pour it back into the bottles and I let it sit, a lot of that's just going to fall out, and then that will allow me to decant some of that vinegar off, and then I can continue to use it and it won't be so murky as this. But look at that. Look at that. Sounding a bit like old Steve Irwin, may you rest in peace. Beautiful. Still some spotting on the bottom here, but you know, it's quite, the pitting I don't think really matters. It's like corrugated, the planes that have corrugated bottoms on them, it won't matter as long as the main body and a significant portion is appropriately flat and true, because you're after this total length flatness. These minor bits of pitting, you know, I can feel the bumps on these. They can sand down, they'll scrub down. But I mean, the fact that I'm feeling them as bumps means they're actually raised on the surface. So with a bit of, you know, scrubbing, sanding, and smoothing out, lapping kind of situation, then it should come up pretty smooth anyway. So good, so good, so good. All right, now comes the body. So a lot of that paint that's already been on here, as I kind of said, is it's coming off, right? You can see it's just flaking off. Those light blue bits compared to the darker bits that haven't been affected by time, sun, exposure, oxidation and such. This has gone really well. But we're going to have to use the steel wool to get into the corner bits because they've been really tricky to get into with the brush. Turn that around, dunk. That's come up really nice now at the front. That Carter. Okay, let's see, what else can I attack with the brush? Well, that's convenient. That's being looked after pretty well. Okay, all right. So, made in Australia, number 7. Beautiful, really beautiful. Now the acid's also turned that blue into a much lighter blue compared to before, and the fact that I've been scrubbing at it. So yeah. If I get a chance to Japan it with the black, I will. Okay, so let's just tap that out, put that in. Let's just open up the packet. I don't know how well that's working, but it's definitely getting stuff off. Yeah, it's getting in there, but it's a little bit slower going compared to the wire brush. The only issue with trying to get, say, a sand blaster or a bead blaster is then I'd have to get potentially an air compressor, and I know that you can get ones that have inbuilt pump units, but they're generally not very powerful or very reliable, quite cheaply made. And if I was going to go down that line, I'd want to invest in something properly. But then, obviously, besides the cost, you know, there's storage space involved, and of course getting the blasting medium, and then learning how to use it and being safe with it. So there's always more to learn to do in any of this kind of stuff. So it is opportunity. It is opportunity, but right now it's not a high priority. Man, I got reasonably big hands, so you know, I'm wearing the large, extra large size of these nylon nitrile gloves that I bought. So getting my fingers in here to actually try and scrub with this is actually quite hard. It's quite narrow for me, and I don't get a huge degree of movement in it. But we're just trying to do the best we can. Yeah, that's quite pitted, but that's just really being quite difficult to get into nicely. Okay, there's a bit back here that I want to get into. Where else can I get into that I really need to get into right now? Try and get up some of that on the inside. Take out some of this if I can. Alright, that is looking super. That's just had a bit more time for the acid to attack the surface, because it was, you know, under other layers that I've scrubbed off now, and a lot of that is just going away right now. Which, you know what, 6-12 hours, a lot of this stuff definitely would have been softened up more, but I'm quite happy with how it is right now. Yeah, there's some nicks. Yeah, there's some nicks and pitting around the corner there, but okay. There's a scratch now that I can see in the plane body, and it runs at a weird curve. So they must have hit something and then just pushed it through and just kept with it. Okay, so we're going to call that. I'm just going to prop that there, go fish out the iron. Add a bit of a last kind of scrub for now. Oh. All right, so I'll put that in there. Let's get the cap. Well, sorry, the chip breaker, not the cap iron. Get the frog. Beautiful. And then, last but not least, the cap iron. Carter tools. See if we can get rid of that bit of pink paint there as well, without being too hard on the actual red enamel that is still there. Man, how did they fit that pin in there anyway? Yeah, that you can see there's a pin here, and then they've actually machined it, polished it back. So there's definitely a pin there, which, you know, if I was a braver person, which I'm not, you could potentially punch that pin out and take this assembly apart a bit more, but we're not going to do that. Okay, so we're going to go and rinse these all off. I'm going to bring them back and apply some wax paste for now before we decide to do anything further. All right, we're just going to put that on the grass for the moment so it doesn't get all damaged up. I probably should get another container so I can transfer them into something not on the ground. Or something. I don't really have too many spare containers. Well, I'm just gonna tip you guys out and we'll just use this one instead. And so this is the same cloth that we had before that the WD-40 was on, but I've kind of given it a wash so that used some sugar soap, which is really good at removing oils and greases. So yeah, that should do the trick. Just a gentle rinse. So the inside there I haven't actually scrubbed, but that will be okay. I can work with that. Okay, inside that spring steel. Give it a good rub over, and that really should take care of any of that acid that is still just hanging about on the surface. Made such a beautiful difference. I'm still having a hard time getting over actually how well it's done its job in cleaning up this. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Okay, so there's the cap iron. Sorry, chip breaker. Keep getting the terms mixed up. I swear I do know what I'm describing. Just my brain is still acclimatizing, I don't know, getting used to a lot of these terms and phrases. Okay, the brush itself, giving it a good workout. Alright, so that aluminium knob, very lightweight. The tote, the knob, bolt, alright, so that is the adjusting screw. This is the screw that is holding the chip breaker and iron together. We've got a frog or a tote screw. We've got the other tote or frog screw. Oh no, I've got holes. It's alright, I'm at the end of the process now anyway. And this is the lever cap screw, which is slightly bent, but that's okay, can deal with that. And then I should have 2 washers. There we go, there's my 2 washers. Alright. And then the rest of this should be empty. Yep, clear. Good to go. Alright, and then the big daddy piece. Look at that. Just still a bit of rust here and there, but bulk of it is all gone. Bulk of that is taken care of really, really beautifully well. Just what a difference it's made. What's really interesting is on this front handle there's black paint here, so it tells me that they actually either put a wet painted knob on straight off the bat, or they tightened it so hard that the actual paint has transferred on and bonded onto the actual body of the plane itself. So either or, not best practices in terms of building something, but in a production sense, if time is money, then sure, you're going to make shortcuts. Then that's a relatively small kind of inconsequential thing to do. Okay, so I think I've given it a reasonably good rinse out now, and what we're going to go back and do is dry it off as best we can, and then we're going to go and apply some wax paste. Oh, my back! But look, the clouds are not looking happy. Okay, so there's that there. I'm going to plonk that on the bench. What we want to do is close that up for now. I'll pour it back into those bottles later, but for now it can just hang out over there. So let's get these off. Yeah, obviously had a breach in the gloves, but I think it's okay. So let's just try and dry this off as best we can quickly now, so that we don't get more new rust forming, because that's what it's naturally going to want to do very quickly, in fact. So just got an old undershirt of mine. It's seen better days. It's already trying to do its thing. Now there's water inside these threads, so what can I get to poke down there? There's my punch, and that'll just help wick it up. Yep, just like that. Good. Right. Okay. Take as much that off as I can. Get into the corners. Ugh. Now there's still bits, right? And I know that, but I really need to get the wax on just so that it protects it, because I can still sand it back even with the wax on, and then I can clean it and then re-wax it. So I'm really not that bothered if I'm going to be waxing over any existing rust that I'm going to clean off later anyway. Okay, so you can see there's black paint there as well, and that's the black paint around that front handle that I was talking about. Okay. Let's dry that off. Oh. Okay, now while I've got that still, I want to check this cheek against that, and there is no light, which is freaking awesome. Awesome. Okay, so now that that's dry, it's relatively low risk, so I can just kind of sit that there, and we'll pull out the rest of these, give them a quick dry down, and we'll give them all a wipe over as well. Now, my battery on the GoPro is probably running really low now, so if it cuts out, I will endeavor to follow up afterwards, but yeah, I'm just going to say in advance that if it cuts out, I do apologize for that. I don't have a spare, and I'm currently not set up in a way to have, as in a spare battery, sorry, not really set up for a continuous power supply situation, simply because of the fact that it's strapped to my head and I'm moving around, so it's not really suitable to have a cable hanging off it, compared to if it was attached to, say, you know, a tripod or something of that nature. You can go back there. Alright, this piece is probably going to be a little bit harder to dry, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to obviously wipe it as dry as I can with my bit of rag, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit all of this lightly with just a heat gun to help evaporate off any last bits of moisture trapped in various spots, and then that will also help warm it up so that my wax paste will go onto it a little bit nicer as well. So that's the plan, at least. That is what I am hoping for. Oh no, it's already starting to rust and run. That is a problem with working with these things. My daughter's about to come out to the shed now, trying to find out what Daddy is doing. Okay, so that's cleaned up quite nicely now. Down. Yeah, see, that's starting to rust really quickly, which is really surprising how fast it's rusting actually, but not surprising all at the same time. Okay, the aluminium knob, don't need to do too much with that. Just dry that off. I suppose that's I don't know if it would have been a cost-saving measure. I mean, it would have been nicer if it was like brass, but obviously these were not the most expensive of things out there, I think, for the time. And if they were trying to make these cheap, then sure, makes perfect sense that they'd use aluminium if aluminium was cheaper at the time. Okay. All right. got a bit of a patina now on them already. I have to clean them up. Move to a drier piece of the rag. That being bent is still going to bug me, but you know, there's not much I can do about that until I decide that I need to replace it. It'll probably still work perfectly fine. Okay. If I was a bit crazier, I'd probably just like heat up the wax paste and then drop all of this in and tape it out so it's just like dipped in it, but I don't know if that's necessarily the best idea. And uh-oh, why have I only got one washer? Why have I only got one washer? Ooh, that's not good. I swear I put both in here. That's not good. All right, I am going to just quickly duck out the back and see if I can find if I accidentally dropped. I did. Look at that. There it is. It somehow didn't come back inside. Always account for your pieces. This is why people have parts washing setups too, with grids and meshes, so you can always see it. Okay, so there you go. There's everything. And now what I'm going to do is grab my heat gun, a cheapie that I used in renovating the house, and then we need to run an extension cord to our power point and see if that will get there. It should. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's a bit dangerous. I'll just sling it over there instead. Well, considering that we're just going to go not too close, yeah, that'll work. Thank you. Just be careful. this is really hot. Don't touch it, okay? Alright, I'm just going to put that over here so that you're not going to touch that. I'm going to just unplug that as well. Alright, so now let's get on to our good friend wax paste. I'll just use that rag. Get my fingers in. Start buffing some in, just to give it a bit of protection. Thunder, 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 thunder. I have to make some more of this. Now, of course, if I end up doing any japanning on this, I'm going to have to strip all of this wax paste off and get it really clean on the surfaces that I want to apply the japanning on. So that's just something that you need to be aware of. Any of these surface treatments that you do will need to come off. Otherwise, the surface not being clean, it will cause the japanning finish itself to inherently not bond well to the surface, and that's you know, it'll peel, it'll crack, it'll split, it'll lift, so you're not going to get a good result from it. Okay, whereas right now that's not an issue for me. Haven't really scrubbed the butt here very much, but okay. Trying to get into all the nooks and crannies right now. And this. The heat gun did warm it up a little bit, but a lot of that heat's already just been lost now in the couple of minutes that it's been, because yeah, it's going to be a constant battle with the environment. Going to go in with the fingers straight up and just get globs of it. Just apply it to places, I think. Probably the easiest way of getting it in, and then take the excess out with the cloth. Now, of course, to get it into the screw holes, that's a little bit more challenging. But what I typically do is I actually put some on the screws, and then I run the screws in and out to coat the actual threads with the paste. And do with that. Puncher. Just punch up some of that. and then that will allow me to run it around there. Any excess on the rag doesn't matter because it's just going to go somewhere else. And we're back. The fade out from the previous section of this video was when the battery ran out. But because my hands were all covered with bits and pieces, and I don't remember, either gloves or wax or whatever else, I just decided to keep going. So what I have in front of you now is actually the complete plane waxed with the paste wax that I've got. And reassembled. So it's already been a day, and we can kind of see that that first layer of paste wax has pretty much dried out. I'm not really, you can see on my hands there's a bit of that sheen from the paste wax. But there's a little bit of discoloring that's happening. I'm not sure if that's surface rust trying to form again, or if it's just dirty from the actual rust that was still on the surface after when I was trying to cover it with the paste wax. So you can kind of see maybe the reflection of where it's a little bit uneven and stuff like that. So I'm probably going to have to give it another coat, but I'm very happy with how it looks right now because, you know, it's super clean. It looks really lovely. I do need to get some work done on the knob and the handle, and then we can go into doing the hot dog, sharpening up the blade and everything else. The only real thing, I guess, is that this particular screw here, as I mentioned before, it is bent, and it's annoying the heck out of me so badly. I'm gonna have to find out what kind of size it is, the head size and the length, and see if I can find a replacement. Maybe if it's just a generic rather than specifically the actual one for the plane. But I did get the alignment for this set up by putting it against this edge and setting it in. Make sure that it was in sort of the right place before I cinched it tight. Okay, so overall, that's what the current state of affairs is with this particular plane and how it looks. The actual enamel, paint, Japanning, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, it's patchy obviously on the main body, but because I've covered it with the paste wax for the moment, I'm just going to leave it there until I decide on if I want to try and strip it somehow and then completely Japan it black, or if I'm going to go with some other kind of protective measure besides just the paste wax. To be honest, if the paste wax is stopping the rust on the actual cast iron, that might just be enough. And a lot of these surfaces you're not going to be touching, you're not going to be wearing on it, you're not going to be rubbing on it. So it shouldn't really degrade very quickly or at all. But of course, if I find that it is wearing and I need to reapply it in some way, then we'll think about a better solution. But now that this is cleaned up, we'll see if that will catch. See, that's catching on my eyes, but not necessarily on the camera. But it says Carter Tools and then AUSTRALIA. So there you go, a bit of a etching there, not a very well deeply stamped, but there is actually a curve to the blade there that I guess I'll just have to live with, I'll have to deal with. So there you go. So that's just wrapping up on where I got to for this. Now, because that's not going in straight, yeah, I do have to kind of just play with it a little bit to get it to the right depth. That's too loose, still too loose, starting to bite now, but it's still quite loose. And then use the screwdriver just to adjust. See how it's moving it left and right? It's because that bent bolt is not fantastic. Okay, so it's kind of getting to where I want it to be. Maybe just another quarter turn. I can still move that. You need to be applying a really good amount of pressure on that to ensure that the actual blade itself is not going to shift too much. There we go. Yeah, that's good. But as it's eccentric now, really, it's not sitting centered, so the actual pressure on the blade is probably also not straight, and I can see the blade is sitting at an angle. So I need to deal with that at some point in time. So I'm going to wrap it there for this part of fixing this Carter plane. The next bit is really going to be working on these knobs. Need to clean out the inside, need to either paint, well, take off the paint or restore that, flake it off, I don't know, we'll have to see, and then have to do something with this broken handle to patch it, repair it, fix it, maybe reshape it. We'll go from there. So thanks for coming along, checking out this video, and we're taking another step closer towards a shooting plane, which then, wow, I don't even know what it must be a low flying plane, to finish off our wrist rest. And yes, it does tie back into mechanical keyboards in just a really long roundabout way. All right, well, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and until next time, happy clacking.